so much. We're going to win at every level. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with health care.
Well, I'm a deal maker. I'll make great deals for this country.
Yeah. Well, the art of the deal didn't work this time. Not even close. Failed huge. Healthcare was supposed to be the tip of the spear for President Trump and Republicans on the Hill. It had to be done first, they insisted, to pave the way for a slew of other priorities. A decision that Trump now telling people that he regrets. He wished they hadn't started with healthcare, but they have, putting everything else potentially at risk. It has been, Andrew, a messy first 100 days, and we're only halfway through.
And it might only get messier from here, Rich. Any president needs popular support, political capital, and just a little bit of fear from lawmakers to push just about anything through Congress. And problems with health care will make all of that more difficult. Trump's two biggest personal priorities may well be tax reform and immigration reform. Healthcare was seen as a key for tax reform, since repealing Obamacare would free up money for needed Trump-backed tax cuts. That could now be in jeopardy. Trump also wants infrastructure investment, something he'll probably need help from Democrats with. That might be in jeopardy. Then there's immigration reform and Trump's border wall, which Congress would need to pay for. He still has to work out a federal budget. Maybe the only positive for Trump on this list might be a Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch's bid. Not likely to be impacted much by the problems with health care. But again, Rich, political capital is a valuable and fleeting commodity. And if he loses it here, can't spend it there.
And to me, Michael, I think the biggest casualty of this, beyond where Trump is, or I'm sorry, where Ryan is or isn't, is Trump put himself out there. To be fair, he worked the phones, he did the meetings, he did everything else. I think he handled everything else wrong, but at least he put his neck out there. This fear of Trump and what he'll do to you, I think that took a hit this time. I think people said, not that anyone won out of this on the Republican side, but people crossed him. It'll be curious what the penalty's going to be.
The penalty's back in the district if these folks get a primary challenge from the right.
But how much more right can they go?
Well, I suppose we're going to find out, because Trump and Bannon and that crew are further to the right, although Trump's history is not there, but certainly Breitbart and Bannon are further to the right than anything currently in the House and in the Senate, except for the Freedom Caucus, which is interesting because they're the ones that led the no on this. So that's an interesting dynamic, the conversation between them and the president's senior advisor. This is also, I'm a huge supporter of the ACA. I think the ACA is great policy. The insurance is supposed to be about spreading risk. It's not a payment mechanism. So you get young, healthy people in the system, and that pays for everyone else. It's a pooled resource. It's a pooled commodity and service. That being said, for those who have legitimate grievances and concerns and criticisms of the ACA, they've been done a disservice, because this was hurried and this was rushed and it was ill-considered. And for those that actually want to have a discussion about it, that's gone. That opportunity is gone.
To that end, one thing very clear, Trump, in trying to sell it, has broken one promise after another on health care. In truth, as it seemingly has for the first 9.5 weeks, Andrew, has taken a beating more than anything.
Yeah, and this is a list or compilation that could go on all night if I wanted to. If candidate Trump saw what President Trump was doing on health care, one can only imagine the sound bites and tweets Trump would be slamming Trump with. Sad, disaster, liar. Here are the biggest broken promises, and here's the biggest one all queued up and ready to become a campaign ad.
Everybody's got to be covered. This is an un-Republican thing for me to say, because a lot of times they say, no, the lower 25%, they can't afford private. But
universal health care.
I am going to take care of everybody. I don't care if it costs me votes or not. Everybody's going to be taken care of, much better than they're taken care of now.
The uninsured person
right.
is going to be taken care of.
They're going to be taken care of.
Everyone covered, everyone taken care of, except, of course, for the 24 million additional Americans who would have lost coverage under Trump care. Add them to the 20 million or so already without coverage. That's a far cry from everyone being taken care of. Let's not forget the nearly 3 million people in the tri-state area who would have lost coverage under Trump care. President Trump's plan also calls for major cuts to Medicaid. I wonder how candidate Trump would have felt about a plan like that.
Save Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security without cuts. Have to do it. Get rid of the fraud, get rid of the waste and abuse, but save it.
That's not what his plan did. Then there's drug treatment. Here's candidate Trump on the night he won the New Hampshire primary.
We're going to work really hard to get those people that are so addicted off the habit. We're going to work like hell to take care of the situation. It's a huge problem in New Hampshire. It's a huge problem all over our country. We're going to have borders again, and we're going to work with you people to help you solve that very big problem, and we'll get it done.
Except that Donald Trump would probably hate President Trump's health plan since it removed coverage for drug treatment and would have made recovery even more difficult for those people he promised to, quote, work with you to help solve that very big problem that he will get done. One last broken promise of another sort. Forget candidate Trump or President Trump. Turns out on health care that Donald Trump from the year 2000 would hate both of their takes on health care. Trump wrote about health care in his book, The America We Deserve, and he sounds like a guy who would prefer Bernie care or European health care over Trump care. 2000 Trump called it an acceptable but accurate fact that there were at the time 42 million uninsured Americans. Ironically, that's about how many Americans would have been uninsured under Trump care. 2000 Trump wrote that working out detailed plans will take time that candidate and President-elect Trump never apparently put in, and Trump care bill that President Trump pushed and rushed through Congress. 2000 Trump said we must have universal health care. That, of course, a far cry from anything in his Trump care bill. And 2000 Trump also asked, how can we engage in a pursuit of happiness with so many uninsured Americans? As his Trump care bill would have uninsured even more, Rich.
You know, Tom, it strikes me, this is the first time that, even with all the alternative facts or whatever they say, he can't blame the media. He can't blame, I mean, he tried to. He can't really blame the other party for what happened. This is his own baby. He chose to force the vote here, or he certainly went along with it. This was on him. And he still can't take ownership for this one, right? I mean, this one, nobody can spin as a good day for the president or it's the media's fault or whatever else. He's got to own this.
Well, no, he's not going to own it. He's already shown us.
But don't you think the public will say it's him?
No, he's going to say Paul Ryan, catch. He's already done that. He's already done that. And Paul Ryan might have lost his job tonight.
Even though Trump said he deserves to stay as speaker.
It doesn't matter what Trump says publicly. Behind the scenes, when you're speaker, you already know there's 2 or 3 people waiting to cut your throat on any given night and become the next speaker. Paul Ryan has exposed himself as not being powerful at all. And Donald Trump, he is really in a pickle tonight. See, I really believe this is good for him politically because now he can turn around and at least have another shot at health care. If it had gone down the way that it did, it would have cost him the election, but it exposes him as a political novice who's not ready for prime time. And oh, by the way, he still has that little problem called Russia.
We will get to that next segment. And so why did the president and Ryan, at the end of the day, not get the numbers they needed on the health care plan? In part because the numbers they were getting from the public are so bad. Andrew, every way you look at the numbers, from the polls to the math of who got left out to how much it would cost and how much it would save, they weren't good.
Yeah, and even the time frame is funny. Ryan released this plan 2.5 weeks ago. I mean, it's only 2.5 weeks. And as people have learned what's in this bill, the numbers got worse and worse as that information came out. Again, let's go back to that new Q poll that was out yesterday. Nationwide, Trump voters opposed Trump care by better than 3-to-1 margin. We showed you this before, but 17 for, 56 against. That same poll asked voters, if your lawmaker votes for Trump care, 46% said that would make them less likely to vote for that lawmaker again. Only 19% of voters said it would make them more likely to vote for their lawmaker. Finally, and this is from the Democratic-leaning group Priorities USA, they polled 20 Republican districts across the country, Republican congresspeople. 11 of those districts voted for Clinton, the other 9 voted for Trump. When told that their Republican lawmakers supported Trump care, that member's net support went from a +12 to a -21. That's enormous. And when asked if they would vote to re-elect their lawmaker, the numbers flipped. Before supporting Trump care, Republicans got a 44 to 38 support. After supporting Trump care, 38 to 45 against. Rich, this vote was toxic for a lot of these Republicans.
And Scott, what do you think of the math? Why at the end of the day did this thing fail? When universally Republicans wanted to repeal this thing, they tried to amend this. Why at the end of the day did they fall so short and fail so spectacular?
First of all, just in the polls, I don't think people really understood what this bill was about anyway. So I would take that with a grain of salt. You got 29 or 30% say don't have any idea about this. Partially because it kept changing, to your point. Remember, at the very end here, the conservatives demanded a whole bunch of things, including essential services that are part of health care, and they lost the moderates. The moderates then wouldn't vote for it with those amendments put in there. So this was a moving target that never really had a substantial piece. Again, going back.
Did Ryan not sell enough? Did the president not explain it enough? Why did they not know how these people were going to vote the first or second time they tried it?
And that goes to Dominic's point. I think Ryan took the biggest hit of all. I don't think Trump did. Trump didn't understand what was in there, just like Pelosi didn't understand what was in Obamacare, honestly. But Ryan is he knew what was in there, but he couldn't pull these two factions together. Fundamentally, they differed on the very essence, which is, do you just get rid of it and eliminate this government program, or do you try to amend it and make it better? And they just couldn't agree to it.
But they must have thought that they could pressure the votes in, even if they didn't ideologically agree with what was in the bill.
They just thought they could muscle through, and a thought-out, deliberate plan would include federal agencies and governors and power brokers in states with swing districts and Senate seats that were up in the next cycle, leaning on their members and doing it in a conscientious, deliberate way, and none of that exists.
And by the way, just for people, this is a little inside baseball, some of the most vocal voices that were freaking out about this, Republican governors that opted into Medicaid expansion. And the Koch brothers were funding every Republican, especially on the Freedom Caucus, said, don't you worry. They can threaten you all you want. We'll help you out come re-election time here. So many different moving characters in this. All right, when we come back here, one of my friends here mentioned Russia. Well, the plot thickens for the investigations into possible ties between the Trump campaign and the Russians. New news this evening. Top Democrat on the Intel Committee is now talking about a grand jury. And former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort, one of the names most often mentioned, he now will appear before Congress.